traffic report. Nothing exciting as usual. Very feed from their BBC on Sky came out and shot me, but then asking the public to help figure out what it was. Problem is, nobody really could. It wasn't a meteor. Those fall. They don't fly sideways at a steady height. It wasn't a bug on the lens either. The light shifts as it moves, and you could see it behind distant clouds. It wasn't military or commercial aircraft as far as anyone could tell, and it didn't match any scheduled flights. Despite being caught live on air and analyzed frame by frame, nobody's ever nailed down exactly what this thing was. Alright, this is an interesting one, because it's not what happened on TV that was the mysterious part, but what was going on with viewers while the broadcast was happening. So in 1992, the BBC aired a Halloween special called Ghost Watch. This was a fake documentary about a haunted house in North London. The thing is, most viewers didn't realize it was scripted. The show was presented like any other live broadcast, except the crew was investigating a poltergeist called Pipes. Viewers at home would catch glimpses of the ghostly figure of Pipes in the background of shots, and there would be weird audio glitches. On top of that, of course, the subject matter was just unsettling on its own. The atmosphere felt real, too real. And as the broadcast went on, people started calling in to report their own paranormal experiences. Others were convinced that the show had invited an actual spirit into their homes. The BBC got tens of thousands of complaints. One girl reportedly entered a catatonic state after watching it. People were legitimately freaking out, even though the show had a brief disclaimer at the start. If you happened to tune in after it, you'd have no way of knowing that this was staged. The format fooled a lot of people, including some of the presenters who weren't even told everything that would happen. Scientists and psychologists later studied the public's reaction to the show, calling it a rare case of mass suggestion triggered by media. The show only aired once, and the BBC banned it for a decade. In November of 2024, a local New York TV station was doing live helicopter coverage of traffic over the Hudson River. Same old stuff, until this strange glowing orb floats into the frame, hovering, changing color, then darting out of view. It starts out white, and then turns blue and kind of semi-translucent before flying off. The anchor didn't react at the moment, but when the clip was shared online, people started talking about it. Some blamed lens flares, some guessed maybe it was a drone, others said a weather balloon, but the object didn't behave like any of those. It hovered, it changed color, then accelerated. Not even the FAA had an answer. What you're seeing here is news coverage in Laos of a mysterious phenomenon known as the Naga fireballs. Every year in late October, crowds gather along the Mekong River in Thailand to watch red balls of light float up from the water and then vanish into the night. Fast, sometimes hundreds in one night. There's been a lot of debate about what's really going on here. The Thai documentary once claimed it was just tracer rounds being fired by soldiers across the river in Laos. Others have blamed flare guns or some kind of flammable gas bubbling up from the riverbed, like methane or phosphine, but none of those explanations totally hold up. The balls don't behave like flares, and scientists pointed out that the conditions needed for gas bubbles to ignite like that don't really line up. In 2021, during a strict curfew, officials made sure there were no people out with flares, and the fireballs still showed up. This footage was taken in downtown Milwaukee in 2018 during a live broadcast. News anchors had no idea what they were looking at. Fireworks? Aliens? They joked. It's very strange. This doesn't even look like your typical UAP footage. These things aren't moving in any sort of recognizable pattern. They're just floating in every which direction. They almost look like ghosts zipping through the air than any artificial object. And there are so many of them. It's really cool, but if I saw this in person, I'd be pretty unsettled. What do you all think of this one? If someone could enlighten me as to what this could be, please share your thoughts down below. This next one comes from a 2017 episode of the British talk show This Morning, featuring a couple and their possessed doll. The chair it sat on started to rock on its own several times throughout the interview.
Who's doing that? Stop it.
The owner said that she and her husband had been walking by an antique store when they spotted a few old-looking dolls. The couple decided to buy a few of them because they were cheap and figured they might be able to flip them for more. Well, as soon as the dolls came home with them, strange things started to happen. They had one doll, the one they brought to the TV studio, sitting on the dresser in their room. Well, one morning the husband got up, hopped in the shower, and then suddenly felt this burning sensation on his leg.
And I looked down, and there was a lot of scratches all over my leg.
They put the doll in their shed inside a plastic bin. Well, a couple days later, the wife went in and opened the bin, only to find that somehow the doll's necklace had been removed, even though it had been wrapped up tightly on the doll initially. And that night she woke up at 2 a.m. hearing this swooshing noise moving past the bed, almost like the rustling of clothing, or more specifically, a dress. There was nothing there. They ended up selling the doll. Did Pope Francis vanish into thin air on live TV? This was filmed back in April of 2020. The Pope showed up at the window above St. Peter's Square to bless people affected by the pandemic. Then he turned around and walked back inside, only before he was out of camera range, he suddenly just vanishes. You don't see him slowly disappear into the shadows. He's just there 1 second, then he's not. It's pretty bizarre. It's hard to find the original news segment online, too, because it was taken down for some reason. In 2010, a Jamaican news station covered a story about a boy who claimed that he was being haunted by a duppy, basically a ghost. The news team captured two strange incidents on camera. First, the boy is sitting in a chair talking about the strange experiences when all of a sudden he flies backward, as if something is pulling him. Then later in the segment, the boy claims to see the spirit standing close by watching him, and then he gets pulled again. At least that's what it looks like. Now, notice how one of his legs is in the air as he continues to move backward. And then when his mom grabs him, his legs like flip around like they're being grabbed at by someone, only we can't actually see anyone. It could be faked, but it is a damn good performance by this kid, if it is. Alright, so at first glance, this just looks like some streaker running around a soccer field. If you're watching casually, you might even laugh it off, but the longer you watch, the weirder this footage is. This figure shows up from multiple camera angles, dashing through the crowd and along the edge of the field, and nobody reacts, like, at all. No one turns their head, no one flinches, it's like they don't even see it. Then you notice this thing doesn't look fully solid. It's kind of see-through. There's a moment where it looks like it passes right through the people. Plus, this person actually ends up on the field, and if you know anything about stadium security, you know the second someone who's not meant to be there steps foot on the grass, they're getting tackled or dragged off. But here, nothing happens. Oh, with all that said, I've been Eros James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.
On an enchanting barrier island off the northeast coast of Florida, tranquility meets productivity. Welcome to Amelia Island, where natural beauty sets the stage for your event. Flexible accommodations for meetings large or small. Stunning outdoor settings, where seminars meet shorelines. Innovative dining concepts designed just for you. And plenty of ways for attendees to unplug and recharge. Discover island-inspired meetings, only on Amelia Island.
You see, I became a judge because I believed in fairness, justice, for a child to know they're safe under the eyes of the law. But when I buried my daughter, I learned something else. The law is blind. You have to understand, you can't escape your sentence once your hand's been dealt. And fortune is fickle. It means an honest man in the So I decided it's up to me to take the scales. The world's much simpler. You'll presume everyone's guilty.
You want to knock it over? Or should I?
I'm only here to take you down. Can't hide this madness.
For the Fox News alert, Iran has canceled today's nuclear talks with the U.S. as their war with Israel intensifies. President Trump is still hopeful a deal can be reached, but is warning the world about a nuclear Iran.
Look, it's very simple, not complicated. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Other than that, I want them to be successful. I want them to be tremendous. We'll help them be successful. We'll trade with them. We'll do whatever is necessary.
Let's go to Chris Jenkins at the touchscreen to break down the Iranian nuclear threat currently.
Yeah, Dr. Siegel, very active, and we can show you here in just the last 24 hours there have been at least 80 strikes in Iran, and you can see here in the capital of Tehran. Now, they did hit Natanz, which is their signature nuclear facility, but also here in the northwest, Dr. Siegel, they struck areas that Ambassador Danan told us really were striking at these ballistic missiles. They weren't aware that so many would rain down, causing casualties there. So while the initial strikes were geared towards striking the nuclear and energy components, they are now trying to strike the airfields and where they believe these missiles are coming from. But let's get to the real threat, as you mentioned, and that is the nuclear capabilities. As I mentioned, Natanz here, that's the main one. That's the one that Israel struck last year. But you also have Isfahan. Now, Isfahan is very significant because it not only houses the smartest of their nuclear scientists, if you will, but they also have a conversion program there that would be the thing that made it an actual nuclear warhead. And Bibi Netanyahu telling our Brett Baer that the strike there really was important in terms of trying to eliminate the threat. Of course, you have in Tehran down here, this is Iran's only nuclear plant. They struck that as well. And here, in what is known as the Arak nuclear hard water reactor, that's significant because that cools the heavy water, and that's used to build a byproduct, which is plutonium. And this one right here, I want to show you this one. Fordo. You're going to hear a lot about Fordo. That is a secretly built against the UN regulations. They violated the UN regulations back in 2007, building that nuclear facility. That's under a mountain, and that's the one that Israel doesn't have bunker busters that the U.S. have to reach it. That's why so many people are talking now about whether will the U.S. get involved and help strike Fordo, otherwise it could remain. So it obviously has eliminated a lot of the threat, but until they get rid of things like that, it's not fully eliminated. Now, why did Israel strike Iran? Well, the answer lies in the technology we're learning from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. They say this is how close Iran was from producing a nuclear warhead. 2 to 3 days, one weapon. 1 month, 11. Keep coming down, you get to 4 or 5 months, you're talking about more than 21, 22 weapons. That is why people in Israel is saying that the world was done a favor by their strike, because this is a danger not only for Israel, but the entire world, to include the United States. Now, let's talk about what Iran did in the years that put Israel in such a disadvantage. It's a ring of fire with their proxies. You have Hezbollah, you have Hamas, you have in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah here, Iraqi Shia militants, and then of course down here you have other militants, Bahrain's, you've got the Houthis that we've talked so much about, and you can see that Israel right here heavily invested, Iran invested very heavily in all of these proxies to do the attacking. That's part of why Israel finally said they could no longer wait, because while they were in a disadvantage with the multi-front war, they had to go for the head of the state. Finally, let's talk about the threat to the U.S. You can see about 40,000 U.S. service members stationed around. We have bases, U.S. bases in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar, in the UAE. We have forces all in here to include in Syria. That is why we are concerned now, as this escalates, and why President Trump is talking about we hope a deal is near, but he's made it very clear that the full weight and force of the U.S. will be directed towards Iran should Iran choose to go after one of our U.S. service members. That's where things stand. And you know, that's why, Dr. Siegel, the next 24 to 48 hours of the G7 will see exactly what other world leaders are talking about, because France, Italy, Germany, these are countries that also are at risk when you consider really the threat that existed and the question of whether the U.S. is drawn into it.
Quick question, follow-up, great report. Mowing the lawn here, getting rid of the visors, getting rid of the people in charge, getting rid of the infrastructure, but you still mentioned that nuclear reactor. How difficult would it be for Iran to go back if we liquidate the threat and start all over from their nuclear power?
Well, that's a great question, and Bibi Netanyahu doesn't want to answer that question. And we don't exactly know. I'm sure the president, and you know, when you're saying this situation, he probably can answer a much closer, accurate answer to that question. But ultimately, what we know now is that Iran's nuclear program has been crippled, set back. I'm not sure what the correct adjective is, but I think you all have to assume that it's not over, and they could restart it. To what capabilities, we just don't know, and that's what makes this so terrifying.
Taylor, you have some quick thoughts on this? About right now, there's a, by the way, IDF just said there's another assault right now.
Well, only again that I think Trump going to the Middle East now
Because if
looks
you lose
so
your MP
smart,
early
trying
and
to
you
get
get booted out of that
allies
second
together
wing
to
section,
isolate Iran. And Griff may know more about this than I do, but the fact that the Israelis were able to use Syrian airspace,
knew where the
the
right
way that Hezbollah and Beirut has said, we're out of this fight, that actually really helped to isolate Iran a little bit more than they thought.
Understood.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Center for Human Services is so diverse. We serve a population from birth to the elderly.
It's really looking at where people are at and then identifying where the barriers might be and then coming up with creative solutions to help them move beyond those barriers within their life.
Primarily, we support people with disabilities and those financially challenged. Every person that we serve has an individual need, and we provide a personal plan to support them with that need.
We want to give you a little peek into a miracle that's happening in our sunflower breeding program. This is the second generation from a cross, a controlled cross that we actually conducted last summer. F1 is the first generation of a hybrid. This is an F2. This is that second generation. If you save a seed from a hybrid and you plant it out, you're going to get this whole variation in that population. There are two main genes we're really interested in. There's the gene for flower doubleness, and then there's another gene that controls your red coloration. We crossed a tall orange sun to a chocolate cherry. We wanted to get the double flower form and the red coloration in the same plant. That's very rare in the industry. There's plenty of double sunflowers. There's plenty of red sunflowers. It's very hard to get a red double. So here we've got a semi-double selection of the sunflower. You can see we've got probably one allele for the double trait. That's why we've only got a partially double flower. You can see some of these other ones show a full double. This is kind of what we're after, is this full double teddy bear face. This is a single. This is actually one we'll cut out because you can see it didn't inherit any of the double genetics. Has the red, has like the Gaillardia ring red pattern, but it's gotta go. We don't want these yellows or these singles to bloom and contaminate our red doubles with pollen. Every heirloom started as a cross, and it's breeding programs like this that make it possible to start a new heirloom legacy.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Ashley Strohmeyer live in New York. Crews in Israel are searching for survivors following Iran's latest barrage of missiles and drones. We're going to get right to Trey Yingst, who is live on the scene in Tel Aviv. Trey, tell us what you're seeing. From what I'm hearing from our people in the booth, it's pretty volatile where you are right now.
Yeah, Ashley, there was just a large-scale Iranian ballistic missile barrage toward Tel Aviv. One of those missiles slipped past air defense systems and slammed into the buildings behind me. This is a residential area of Tel Aviv. This is an area that people are known, and we're just going to move 1 second because they're trying to clear out this area actually as we talk, and my cameraman is going to show you the scene here as we move. But again, this is in Tel Aviv, Israel's second largest city, and you can see that these crews are trying to get a fire under control. They are looking through these buildings to make sure that no one is trapped under the rubble. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings directly affected by this. And again, the police are just moving people around here as they try to clear a path for the first responders and ambulances that have arrived here on the scene. Actually, as we move forward here, we will learn more and be able to report more about the location, but broadly I can say that we are in Tel Aviv, Israel's second largest city. The Army and police are aware of our location. We coordinate these things to make sure that we're not giving away any details that could be harmful to first responders and the people on the scene. But just to describe what we are seeing here, when we arrived, it was still dark. There was a man who was injured. His name was Gal. He was bleeding from his legs, and I talked to him and I said, "What happened? How are you? How are you feeling?" He said, "My ears are ringing. I can barely hear you." He said he has glass injuries to his legs, and he was waiting to get medical attention. He was just one of a number of people who was injured, and you can see there's about 10 or 15 journalists at this location we're at, and we're just going to push back a little bit here, Ashley. But again, the latest information that we have, there's been a ballistic missile attack launched by Iran at central Israel. One of those missiles slipping past air defense systems and slamming into the ground below, causing damage to 4 or 5 buildings in Tel Aviv. First responders you can see are here on the scene. They have gloves, hard hats, and torch lamps. They are now moving into the buildings to try and see if they can find any survivors or other people that were injured. I want to just show you across the street here, actually. There's a massive amount of damage to this very tall building. And it just shows you the blast wave and radius of such a blast when something like this takes place. And so we will find out more information in the minutes and hours ahead. But what we know right now, a number of people have been injured. We can confirm that because we saw it when we arrived here on the scene. When we got here, this entire parking lot was on fire. Cars were crushed and smashed. And first responders ran into the blaze and started to put out the fire. As the fire died down, we could really start to see the full scope of what happened here and start to count the buildings that were affected by this blast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Shot home to this building, 7.
Yeah, I'm waiting for rematch.
Here on this building destroyed.
I am on East Coast.
How destructive these Iranian missiles are when they
Well,
in the center part of
we
Israel.
got how much time? Was it 3 hours or 2 hours?
You know,
Something
Trey,
like
you were
that.
talking, I saw in the video there was a little girl with
How
her
you guys doing?
backpack on walking with her dad, and it looked like her brother.
I'm excited for the game. I wasn't at first, but I looked more into it and changed my mind, I think. Looks pretty dope, and I heard everybody that's played it really liked the game. Really liked it. If the quality is as good as the Sifu game, I'm sure I like it. That Sifu game's freaking awesome. It's one of the best combat games I've played. If you're talking like just straight up combat, feels like you're in a kung fu flick. Know what I'm saying? Yeah, Returnal's fun. I haven't played Returnal in a couple of years. I wanted to play co-op, but I can never find anybody to play with. I can't even beat the first goddamn boss on this shit. Fuck off, bitch. I was gonna play this, or oh fuck, I just saw. Or Death Stranding. I was thinking about getting playing Death Stranding again. What do you guys playing tonight? Or are you just waiting for a rematch? I'm pretty sure. Let me check the time. I still have to buy it too. I haven't even bought it yet. And what I don't understand is did they do a beta test or play test? Because I was in it, but this just says not active. You think they do it before launch? Maybe I missed it. But we got, if you get the Pro Edition, this says 2 hours. So by the time this comes out, it's going to be 4 a.m. for me. I go by Central Standard Time. I haven't watched any gameplay. I'm not sure if there's any on YouTube. I've just seen the trailers and shit. And I also want to know if you could pre-install it. Anyone with the Pro or Elite Edition has been able to download it yet. It's telling me that it's not available for 3 days still. How big is the game too? I need to know that. Taking a break at work. You working overnight, or maybe do you just live far from me? It's only 20 gigs. That's not too bad. Sorry if my TV's too loud. I have this weird thing where I always have to have my TV on, just like background noise. And if I don't, it gives me like some sort of anxiety or something. I always have to have it on. I'll leave it on when I go to work. That's how bad it is. And the game's only $30 too, but I'm buying the $40 edition. But also, if you don't want to spend money, it's going to be on Game Pass in like 3 days, which kind of surprised me. Rocket League. Knockoff? What? These fucking Steam discussions are wild. Is there any gameplay on YouTube? Let me check. If you don't want spoilers or whatever, you might not want to watch.
Because
30 minutes of gameplay.
So, Rematch is a fast-paced soccer game where you play in a tight arena. There's no out-of-bounds, no stoppages, and no fouls. Just pure action. You play in either 4v4 or 5v5 matches, and every player is human.
Oh, it's 5 versus 5 too.
The ranked mode is 5v5 by default, but 4v4
I thought it was 4v4.
is a bit more open and relaxed if you're just learning the ropes. You'll quickly notice that Rematch leans toward arcade-style gameplay, but don't let that fool you. It's not wild with power-ups or unrealistic physics. You jump high, do flashy flicks, but you're still playing real football. You'll need actual tactics to win. Passes, positioning, and teamwork matter a lot more than button mashing. What really stands out is how involved you feel. Unlike pro clubs in EAFC, where you might spend half the game waiting for the ball, in Rematch, you're always active. Everyone has equal stats, so it's about skill, not grinding your player up. Passing feels amazing. The ball is fully independent. It doesn't suction to players. You have real control over how you pass, into space, to feet, chit, and it rewards smart movement. It feels like you're really setting up plays, not just relying on lucky deflections or auto assists. And dribbling? It has its own charm. There's this one mechanic where you press the A button on an Xbox controller to push the ball away from you. Then you can loop around the defender and try to collect it again. It's clean, satisfying, and something you rarely get to pull off in EAFC. You don't need fancy stick skills to be good here. Sure, the rainbow flick might be a little too strong right now. That probably needs to be nerfed. But for the most part, Rematch is about reading your opponent. It plays more like a fighting game, where every move has a counter if you guess right.
Oh shit.
Stamina plays a big role too. You can't just sprint forever or spam tackles. You have to manage your energy or you'll get caught out of position fast. And because the tackling system is strong, staying in the right spot on defense really matters. Shooting is probably the trickiest part of the game. You use the right stick to aim before you take the shot. So you're basically trusting the ball to get to your feet while already looking where you want to shoot. It's a little awkward at first, especially because you lose control of the camera for a second. But once you get the hang of it, it adds a layer of tension that makes goals feel earned. You can curve your shots mid-air using the left stick, but the real challenge is lining things up in the first place. Volleys, in particular, can be tough. You need to turn your camera away from the ball before...
Man, I wish I could have played the play test.
And that's going to be frustrating for some players. Now, one of the more unique things about Rematch is the restricted POV. You don't have a wide field of view like in other soccer games. That forces you to rely heavily on the mini-map to see what's behind you. Some people might hate that, but it actually adds to the chaos and energy of the game. You're always on edge, watching your back, making quicker decisions. It's more intense. But yeah, if you're someone who likes to see the whole field, this might feel limiting. Unfortunately, things start to fall apart when you're in goal. The camera here becomes more of a problem than a challenge. You can't track the ball very well when it bounces off the back wall or goes over your head. There's a huge delay in your reactions because you just can't see what's coming. And even if you read the play perfectly, you often don't have the right tools to react. Want to make a small jump to punch the ball? Can't. Want to just reach up and grab it? Good luck. The movements are too big, too clunky, and don't always match what you're trying to do. There's also no simple way to do a small animation to intercept a lob or corner. You either go full dive or nothing, which feels bad, especially when you're in the right spot. The control scheme is flexible. You can remap it to match FIFA/E. You just feel more in control overall, even if it takes time to learn. The fact that so many of these things make you ask, why doesn't EAFC do this, is probably the best compliment this game can get. Still, there are a few
That's
things
an AI
that make
talking?
Rematch even better. The creativity is already there, but giving players more tools would make the one-on-one game more exciting. Fake shot mechanic, not for cheesing like an EAFC, but to cancel out of a bad shooting angle. Right now, it's a bit too easy to spam without punishment. Maybe tie it to stamina, like the rainbow flip. Give more control, maybe small dives, punch buttons, or better auto animations when you're close to the ball. Locking into the server region you want is a must, especially for competitive play. Rematch isn't just another arcade soccer game. It's doing things better than many serious sports games, especially in terms of passing, positioning, and the way the ball behaves. The skill ceiling feels high, and the teamwork element is strong. But it's not without its flaws. The goalkeeping system needs work, the shooting will be a love it or hate it situation, and the camera can be frustrating. Plus, certain overpowered moves and balance issues might turn off some players if not fixed quickly. If you enjoy creative passing, team play, and fast-paced action where you're always involved, this game has a lot to offer. But if you're expecting polish, deep tactics, or a traditional view of soccer, you might feel a little lost. So, is Rematch worth playing based on the demo? If you're looking for a new kind of soccer game with fresh mechanics and a more active playstyle, then yes, it's definitely worth trying. Just go in knowing there are still rough edges to smooth out, especially in net. Be ready for fast games, creative freedom, and a gameplay.
Yeah. Seems alright.
Are you worried that there could be people under the rubble?
Yeah, until we reach not get into the building, we are still worried that there is some people.
Thank you so much for speaking with us. And so you can see this is a local fire personnel. There are medics on the scene, but he just there talked about what is the biggest concern right now, actually, and that is the possibility that there are people trapped under the rubble and debris from these collapsed buildings. And that's really in the minutes and hours ahead, and these are critical minutes because if people are injured and they survive the initial blast, they want to get to them as quickly as possible. In the distance, they're currently setting up a tent. We have seen this tent before, and this tent is used for people to check in the neighborhood, and they will give their names, and they will give their addresses, and any relatives or friends or family members that they have in the area to ensure that they can account for everyone. Right now, there are people unaccounted for. You heard directly from that local fire chief. Still, as we speak right now, actually, and you're going to see it in a moment, they are bringing in stretchers, preparing for the worst. We'll be very careful about what we show you here live. And in the distance, there are ambulances, and they're waiting to just see. And here's one of those orange stretchers that's being taken in by these first responders on the scene who immediately rushed to this site. Again, when we arrived here, everything was on fire. You couldn't even see the buildings. There were so many flames. As the firefighters got them extinguished, we started to gather more about what happened here, which was clearly a direct hit of an Iranian ballistic missile. Ashley?
Yeah, I just want to point out to anyone who's watching, whatever you're seeing on the screen, behind the screen, whatever application this game is a million times worse in real life. I'm sure you couldn't even fathom to explain and describe it. You did a great job of describing what you're seeing on the screen.
military from the United States of America and you are looking for a place to attack, let me tell you that Panama is an excellent option. With sun all year round and a tropical climate, it offers you a permanent residence permit. If your retirement...
Yeah, actually, it's all hands on deck for these crews. They are using the Army and first responder units in the Army to respond to these scenes. And I talked to a few guys yesterday at a different site in central Israel, guys about my age, and I said, look, are you guys in the Army all the time? They said, no, we're in what's called Miluim, reserve duty here. And they worked in high-tech jobs in Tel Aviv, and they have gone into the Army. They were called up because of this war that has now erupted between Israel and Iran. And they were at a site basically saying, we never thought we were going to have to use these skills, just given the fact that their unit is an emergency unit in the Army. It's a last resort for when other teams are overwhelmed, firefighters and medics in the area. And so the fact that they were called up and responding to scenes, digging through rubble, looking for survivors, it speaks to just how challenging this moment is for Israel. And again, as we speak, the Israelis are continuing airstrikes against positions inside of Iran. And Iranian officials earlier in the day, just yesterday, talked about the fact that they're not willing to stop firing these ballistic missiles, and the Israelis have indicated they're not willing to stop striking Iran. So this is far from over. And the reality is that these major population centers like Tel Aviv are going to continue to pay a very heavy price with these missiles raining down. When this explosion happened, we were in a shelter in Tel Aviv, relatively far from here, not walking distance, and it shook the entire building that we were in. And I talked to a few people I know that live around here, and they said something terrible has happened. They could hear it, they could feel it. When these strikes happen, it shakes the ground, and it destroys all of the buildings in its path, in a flash of radius, something like this. And again, as we get more light here, the scene is coming into reality. And after that, the strikes come into reality. And as you heard from that fire chief directly, their biggest concern is that there are Israeli civilians trapped on the road.
Ah, man.
We're going to actually move positions into this area here. Yes, and that's part of what we're trying to do here is and it's a bit of negotiation here with these first responders, of course. But when you move to these areas, the biggest concern is that there are buildings that could collapse. There are... Okay, just 1 second, stay with me. Just stay with me. Get to that area that you were discussing with people and being taken.
I'm dead.
You're going to see the tent that I talked about as we walk by here, and actually this is important to explain as we go by here, actually. The tent off to my right here is 5'3". Response that they have computers and they have information about the local residents so that they can try to start counting. So we can actually
Fucking piece of shit.
You're going to see a lot of first responders in this area. These are the teams that are waiting for people that are being taken out.
Are these medic
And just give me 1 moment. Yes, these are medic teams, and I'm going to have to show you a different vantage point here. You can see down here, these are all medics from United Hatzalah. And just stay with me, I just need to talk to the team for 1 second, actually. We're going to stand right here. Okay, here, the second. The second. And so we're just moving back a little bit here as these teams continue to work. But I'll just show you a little bit more damage across the street here, Ashley. Again, this speaks to the blast radius when these things happen. And just be mindful of some of these signs. You need to shoot this direction. And if you look down here, you're going to see a lot of damage to storefronts. You can hear those alarms that are going off. And we won't stay in this location too long as to not to keep it so loud. But again, behind me in the distance, there are teams still going through this debris, looking for any survivors that may be trapped still.
Man, that's crazy.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm seeing
Hey.
in the video box next to you, looks like an older woman being brought out. How many people, like I said, this is just what I'm seeing from the video that you guys are seeing right now. How many people are you seeing them bring out right now?
I can't see the video that you are showing,
Okay.
and
So
from what
you're
we
not seeing people
understand,
being
there are
brought out.
multiple. At this vantage point, we are not. And we also understand there are multiple impact scenes. And just stay with me, Ash. I'm going to get away from this loud noise so that you can hear me a little bit better. We understand that there are multiple impact scenes. And so it may be somewhere else in central Israel. It may be in a location close to here. And what I'm going to show you here is these teams of first responders. They have all this gear ready. They're prepared for these scenarios. There's a dog that you're going to see over here. I think that's just someone else's dog. You asked earlier about something that I'll give you the answer to now. As we're kind of moving here, I'm thinking about a lot of things at one time. You asked earlier about the first responders, actually. And to tell you about them, they're people, most of them who have day jobs in high-town. They work in bars or restaurants. And they have volunteers to come into the reserve role.
What the f...
Today we were at the scene and they were in a circle and they were basically trying to keep their spirits high, understanding that the work that they were about to do
What?